Minnesota in probably 20 years. Bring gas.
Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Little State of the Wolves Monday here. Nice little W after a couple of buzzkill losses. Julius Randle back in the mix last night, and we get to see how adding the regular veterans back in affects the rotation. So plenty of things to talk about here today, and we will do so after we shout out a couple of friends. Parlor Bar, that burger, man.
Oh,
talk dirty.
Absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure that if you have not tried it, that you've heard about the Parlor Burger, but you have to try it. And I'm going to give you the perfect opportunity to. If you're going to a Wolves game or going downtown, a Parlor Bar located in the North Loop within easy walking distance of a Wolves game. Also, I've told you for a while now, you try the chicken sandwich too. Don't sleep on the chicken sandwich. The Parlor Burger is the first round choice, but I'm going to tell you right now, the chicken sandwich is a very close 1B as well. Kitchen open until midnight on Friday and Saturday. A craft cocktail list that is absolutely outstanding. So check them out. Parlor Bar, North Loop. If you're going to a Wolves game, if you're going to a Twins game, perfect place to stop beforehand.
Also, thanks to Federated Insurance for powering Flagrant Howls this season. Federated is all about maximizing your success as a business owner through risk management. That's what they specialize in, dating back to 1904, Owatonna, Minnesota. So they're Minnesota-based, but they have tentacles all throughout the country. So wherever you are running your business, maybe you're outside the state of Minnesota, they've got you covered. You can go to federatedinsurance.com to find a full list of industries that they specialize in. And if you work with them, you'll find out what makes them special. Face-to-face, eye-to-eye, they value relationships. And again, you can find out more at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, producer Declan will lead us through the overview of the state of the Wolves, and then we'll get to some of our favorite and least favorite things over the last few days.
All right, so the Wolves 33-29 so far on the season. They are 7th in the Western Conference, but it is jumbled. They are technically tied for the 6th spot with the Clippers, and they're just a half game up on Dallas, who's the 10th seed. So between the Clippers, the Warriors, the Wolves, the Kings, the Mavs, all of them separated by a half game between the 6th and 10 seeds in the Western Conference. So it's going to be still a kind of a dogfight to figure out who's going to get out there. But the Wolves, I guess due to tiebreakers, you could say are 8th in the West right now. Taking a look at their offensive rating, they're 13th in defensive rating. They are 6th. I will say, finally, ESPN.com is starting to like the Wolves' playoff chances. This has shot up significantly. It might be the biggest uptick from a week ago. They're now 77% chance to make the playoffs. I believe that number last week was 60. So it's gone up 17 percentage points in a week's time. Basketball Reference still really likes the Wolves as a playoff team. That's at 89%. They've been more bullish as opposed to ESPN over the course of the season. So vibe check here. Wolves get some players back into their rotation that they've been missing in DDV and Julius Randle. Vibe check, Judd. Do you have a vibe check for these Timber Puppies?
I do indeed. The vibes are fresh and healthy. The vibes are now
so fresh and so healthy.
Yes, exactly right.
Clean,
Donte DiVincenzo back. As Phil said, Julius Randle comes back against the Suns on Sunday night. Gobert, I believe, is supposed to be back at some point. They are projecting within the week. And so now the Wolves vibes are fresh and healthy. And for the stretch run now, Chris Finch can basically sit down and figure out how to use the guys that were and are contributing. Because I think that there is no way he can go back to how they started the season, which was basically suppressing every young guy that he could and playing the veterans. That's not to say the veterans can't contribute. Donte last night, fantastic. Julius for his first game back, I thought, pretty damn good. So this is not suggesting that he bench his veterans, but this is a opportunity now. And it sounds like Finch sat the players down on Sunday before the game and basically talked about, don't take it personally if you don't play. This is about the team. It's not about you. And so it feels like there is a real chance here, despite the fact that the loss at Utah on Friday, which I'm sure we'll talk about, was a definite buzzkill and was a bad loss. But it feels like there is a definite opportunity here for a reset So I'm actually sort of bullish on the way that things could go here. And the health of this team to me is a vibe because it should give them a chance to reset and be fresh.
Yeah, to play off what you said, I think Wolves vibes are sneakily dangerous right now, despite some of the rough losses in the last week. That the Utah game, well, first of all, the Lakers game, which we touched on that for the Friday episode, where Ant picks up the technicals, and yeah, he gets a bad whistle sometimes. But they wind up losing the game, and then they lose Ant to suspension, and then they give up like a 27-4, some ridiculous run to end a quarter against Utah. And it's like those are just, they've got like 9 unnecessary losses, I feel like, on their schedule. You're gonna have some bad losses, but going forward, so from this point going forward, and Declan laid out where they are in the standings. They are currently 8th based on percentage points, with 5 teams jumbled within a half game between 6 and 10. But of those teams and the teams above the Wolves have the easiest schedule on paper the rest of the way. They're getting healthier. They're getting players back. Donte DiVincenzo. I mean, the second half last night was a vibe. The first quarter, you're like, oh, classic, sluggish, slow start, down by double digits to this dying Suns team that's lit, like they hate their coach. Durant is openly talking on podcasts about how he's going to be gone probably next year. Like they're just completely checked out.
Yes.
And you're down by like 13 points. And it just felt like classic letdown. Okay, but then the rust starts to shake off a little bit. Jaden McDaniels has to figure out, okay, now that I'm not being relied upon to be a driver of offense because Julius is back and DiVincenzo's back. I mean, he had he had no points at the half, like 1 or 2 shot attempts. But then he finds his energy and his activity in the second half. And so you wind up with the second half with all the threes from DiVincenzo, the hustle plays from Julius Randle, and even Julius Randle was on ESPN with our guy George Sedano, friend of the show.
Yeah, coming out of the break.
Talking about how defensively we got to turn it up. I got to be better. Like Julius is bought in to this thing. Mm-hmm. And I have a thing on him later in one of the other categories. But Anthony Edwards hulking up after the suspension, the team kind of coming together after that crazy run where Julius makes the save out of bounds, flying into the stands. And then he gets the dunk on the the ensuing swing around, and then Jaden McDaniels intercepts the inbounds pass, throws it down, and the bench just goes crazy. The second half was a vibe for the Wolves. If you're wondering how are they going to integrate some of these veterans back in, so can you take advantage now that you're getting healthier, you're in prime position to climb back up the Western Conference standings by just beating teams you're supposed to beat on your schedule? That's the biggest thing going forward.
And I think the most important factor in that entire thing that you just said is Ant. Ant came back from the suspension. It cost them. I mean, if Ant plays against the Jazz on Friday, they probably win. Yep. He comes back and he tries to be against the Suns on his best behavior possible, right? And to your point, when that whole thing transpired with the bench going crazy, Ant was on the bench and he led that. He's got the towel, which he likes to do. That to me becomes the most important thing. Can Ant, number one, keep his mouth shut, or at least not swear? I don't think you have to. I don't think that you have to go quiet.
Oh, now
but don't
Judd's
swear.
Coming around.
No, don't swear at the officials. I don't care if you swear to the
Prude.
media. Don't swear at the officials, because when you call them an effing bleep, you're going to get a technical. So can he not? Can he just control himself? And then the thing too is, can he? And there's no reason why the answer is not yes. Can he harness the energy that we saw? Can he harness that continually? Like there was a little bit of Ant last night. The non-call, I think it was on Booker. Ant stands there, and I guess from the story that I saw, Finch is like yelling, and his teammates start yelling, "Get back! You've got to go play defense." So there's a definite accountability with Ant here. But like last night, what we saw, both with 44 points and just the overall demeanor, that's the Ant that you need to see continually. So
the biggest test of his willpower because it's like he's not out of the woods. Every 2 technicals now going forward puts him back into a suspension. So he had that moment where it was about to be a crazy highlight reel lob. DiVincenzo bounced the ball off the paint up for Anthony. It was literally like a dunk contest.
It was
play in a
Globetrotter
game.
stuff.
Yeah. And Anthony Edwards goes up, and Bradley Beal, I believe it was, shoves him midair, which is super dangerous. And there's ways to, if you're gonna prevent something, you wrap a guy up safely, or you just like grab his arm and pull it down. He shoves Ant midair, which is dangerous, and somehow the official like didn't see it, or it was super weird.
Review.
And Anthony Edwards starts apoplectically like doing his thing. And I know that like most people watching, that's an egregious no call. And it's like, well, that's clearly why he gets mad. It doesn't matter, dude. You have to be able to absorb egregious no calls and they'll challenge it. If you have a challenge left, you'll challenge the call. There's ways to sort of subvert it now. But I like that he, after about 3 seconds, he just kind of put his hands up to his face and just walked away, went over to the bench, go complain to your teammates.
And he was pissed.
So there's room for 2 things to be true. He gets a bad whistle relative to what it should be sometimes, and relative to some of the other players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, etc. And also, just because you get a bad whistle doesn't mean that you can and should be letting the officials know about it in a derogatory way every single time there's a bad call. So he's got to learn, and he did last night for the most part.
Yeah, I would just kind of echo some of the vibes that both you guys were talking about. They're healthy. I mean, the vibes feel like they're healthy and kind of replenished here with Donte coming back and Julius coming back, and I'm curious to see how everything now starts working and what rotation, either additions or changes, kind of happen here. Now you got 2 veterans that you've been missing for the last month plus, so vibes are healthy. What about favorite thing?
Real quick, on the healthy thing, I still think the biggest piece that's going to be interesting is when Rudy comes back, because he's been kind of day to day, excuse me, with like the back stuff. But he is the hardest piece to fit in sometimes. And I think we weren't in the room for the Chris Finch sort of preemptive pep talk of, hey, don't get offended now. We got 10 or 11 guys that deserve some playing time.
Right.
So some of you. I wonder if some of that was directed at Rudy, because Rudy can be a little sensitive sometimes, and why isn't the ball coming to me in certain situations, and he can get kind of pouty.
Right.
But there's never been a more obvious time to scale back his minutes. Like, dude, you've had some back stuff. You're in your 30s now.
Right.
There's other guys that deserve playing time now that maybe we weren't playing 2 months ago. Naz Reid, who had a bad offensive night last night, actually played the most minutes of anyone, 39. Like, that dude should be playing 30-plus minutes a night. So is this a time for Rudy? Not saying that he doesn't start or that he doesn't play or whatever, but instead of playing 33 minutes, 35 minutes, this is a really obvious time when he comes back to say, hey, man, for health reasons, everything, age, like, we're in this for the long haul, man, and we want some of these other energy guys to play. You're playing 26 to 29 minutes a night. And you're going to be a dominant defensive force and grab rebounds. But you're not a 35 minutes per night guy. Maybe some nights if the matchup dictates.
Right. But his importance this is the thing. His importance is still huge. So
100%. Yes.
And like in the playoffs, like Gobert, because he's not a sexy player to watch, I think the assumption is that he's just a big lunk. Which he is a big lunk, but he's an important big lunk, and he's an important piece. So, like, yes, and he is not the type of guy who, I think from a coaching point of view, if you scale him back, it's like, well, what's the use of playing him now? Well, the use is he is a disturber on defense, but you nailed it. I think Rudy is, and this is just my take from afar, but I feel like from what we've read and heard, Rudy is very sensitive. Like the locker room's got guys that are clearly going to be like that. Rudy is one of those guys. And so, yeah, if you scale him back, I guess my message to him is this does not mean that you're not extremely important. It just means that I've got, and if Chris Finch goes back to what he was doing previously, he's going to get some well-deserved criticism based on the fact that he now has guys that should and can play and contribute.
And when Rudy is on the court, the Wolves have like the third best defensive net rating in the league if you were to like extrapolate that to a full season. So like his impact defensively is still peak and very important, even if you don't see it sometimes in the box score. But they've also injected with Jalen Clark, like they've injected some defense and some energy in some other ways with maybe smaller players. So I would just point to this. In 27 of his 55 games, so half of his games, Rudy has played at least 34 minutes. And like the Wolves have largely played really good defense with those minutes. But I would just look to say, he's had a few games, dude, he's had 8, 9, 10, 11 games of 38 minutes or more. And I think you can get the Rudy impact. You can kind of get the point with 28 minutes of Rudy and open up offense and energy and development of young players and just let some of those guys impact the game. And even like let Jaden McDaniels blossom in those extra 10 minutes that maybe you're giving him a chance to play a bigger position. So I just wanted to piggyback off the health thing that Declan brought up.
Favorite current Wolves thing, Judley?
Donte DiVincenzo. So before he got hurt, we started to see this. And he has now come back and picked up where he left off, which is outstanding. Last night, off the bench, 8 for 14 from the field, 8 for 13 on threes.
It's a great shot chart.
He didn't miss a three. He missed one shot, 24 points, plus 26, 6 steals. Like when we talked about the cat trade and said the financial flexibility that you're probably going to gain by Julius opting out or not coming back is one thing, and that is important because of the aprons. But the other thing is Donte DiVincenzo is on a steal of a contract, and he is going to play a crucial role, and this dude can play. Got off to a terrible start, adjusted, got hurt, but has come back. And like this is a semblance of the guy now that we expected. And if this is him on this contract, it's a huge winning piece. So that is my favorite thing is the payoff it got interrupted, but we're seeing it now. DiVincenzo is going to be a very important piece of the Timberwolves.
My favorite obscure stat from last night via Timberwolves PR from OptaStats with his 8 3-pointers and a career-high 6 steals, Donte DiVincenzo becomes the first player in NBA history with at least 7 made threes and 5 or more steals off the bench in a single game. Wow. An historic performance for him last night.
So is he going to go back to starting or is this his role now? Because I know that the catch and shoot is a huge part of his success.
Yeah, the catch and shoot. Guard. He is a great catch and shoot player. He's the Wolves have like 3 guys, 4 guys, maybe more that like can totally play point guard if needed for stretches. Like Nikhil can totally do it if needed, and DiVincenzo and even Ant like can totally, but none of them are really great at ball handling, avoiding turnovers, bad passes, etc. And that's why now Mike Conley only played 20 minutes last night, and that's probably his role is like he's not going to be a 35 minutes per night guy either. Dillingham was kind of the odd man out. Like Chris Finch decided that, and I don't blame him, Terrence Shannon Jr. and everything he brings, and Jalen Clark with his defensive tenacity, that's as far as we're going to get it to 9-man, 4 off the bench, 9-man rotation. Mm-hmm. But I'd still be curious, especially with a back-to-back coming up, because you have Philadelphia tomorrow night at home, and then you go to Charlotte. What I would do is I would sit Conley for probably the second leg, the second night of the back-to-back. And I would either start DiVincenzo just to see what it looks like, but I would be more tempted to start Rob Dillingham. And I'm not saying you have to play Dillingham for 30 minutes, but I'd love to see what Dillingham looks like starting in place of Conley. Hey, dude, don't take dumb heat check shots. Like, go get your offense when it's there, but just be a facilitator and be a guy that gets open looks for other players. Because you can't even come back and say, yeah, but his defense. Dude, Mike Conley gets hunted on defense now. He's close to 40 years old.
This is not great.
So there's still a role there, but you got like 3 or 4 back-to-backs the rest of the year. Dude, Conley, kick your feet up, man. Like, this is a night
coach.
for you. Yeah, put a suit on.
That dude can coach.
Not a suit, because they don't wear suits, but yes.
Put a fleece on.
Yes, put a quarter zip. A nice little quarter zip. Okay, my favorite current Wolves thing is the fact that they have ended the Suns franchise. Think about where we were a year ago, or like almost a year ago, and all of us were looking at the standings like, oh my God, they're going to get the Suns in the first round. And the Suns had wiped the floor with the Wolves in those. I think they played 3 times in the regular season.
And it was
got
the last game,
smoked.
right?
The last game of the year.
The last game, and we all thought the Wolves are done.
Here we go. Maybe they saved something, and they did. But from how nervous everybody was going into the playoffs about, oh man, how are you even going to like get one game against this Suns team? They've now played each other 7 times since the end of the regular season last year. The Wolves are 7-0, 4-game sweep in the playoffs, and then they've swept the first 3 games. I think they play a 4th. Total margin of plus 89 in those 7 games. They've gotten the Suns to fire a coach, on the verge of firing another one, and to trade Kevin Durant and blow up what they were trying to build. Yeah. The Wolves have ended the Suns, and it's hilarious.
They got off to that great start, too, to your point last night.
Yeah, here we go. This is great.
It's like the Suns, oh my God, they're back. And then they just, you can just see the gas tank go to E, can't you? Like you're just
the minute the Wolves go on a run,
yeah.
they all start just like showing bad body language.
Yes,
and it's terrible.
Exactly right. And Durant's just like there.
Yeah. Well,
He's
Durant knows, yeah, I'm out of here.
Right,
I'm probably going to play for you guys next year. I don't know what that looks like.
But it is a complete mess. And you know what, though? The intriguing thing is, for all that previous to the change with the Twins and White Sox, the Ishbia talk, right? The Ishbias are coming. Well, I don't know. The Ishbias coming would have been that great a thing.
Yeah. Well, but I do think it's more of a Twin show topic, but like Matt Ishbia came in and said, screw the luxury tax. I don't care. They're the most expensive team in the league. I'll pay for it.
Right.
But then it's like, yeah, that's great. You'll pay for it and take a loss on your team to try and win. But then if things need tweaking, now you're in the second. It's more of a strategic thing that like paying that much for a team actually hamstrings your chances to make trades and make moves.
I also think it's part and parcel of trying to, and especially with rich guys who don't care about spending, I think part of what you're seeing is let's assemble an all-star team.
Yeah, and sometimes
we got Booker, let's go get Beal. We got Durant, let's go get this guy and that guy. Like chemistry in sports is incredibly important.
That's actually one of because the Celtics and the Heat put together these super teams via trade and free agency signings like 10, 15 years ago, right? and they won. The Celtics won a championship and went to a couple more NBA finals, and then the Heat had not really a dynasty, but they went to 4 straight finals and won 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And everyone then thought going forward, like the Nets tried to do it with a couple different iterations, and and now the Suns are trying to do it, that you can just take 3 super max players and like that's boom. Now if you can just make room for that, you're going to be in the NBA finals. But man, like that discredits so much the way that those Celtics and Heat teams sacrificed for each other, in some cases financially even. Like the Heat, all those guys kind of took a little less money to fit under the cap.
Right.
But Chris Bosh had to be okay with going from being like a 24-10 guy every night in Toronto to standing in the corner offensively.
Yep.
And Dwayne Wade had to be comfortable sort of giving way to LeBron James and playing off each other. And
those that trio of Celtics players, those guys were dogs. Like
KG and
they
Paul
were not
Pierce.
messing around.
Yep.
That was not about, I need to be the guy. Those guys were going balls to the wall to win, which was awesome.
And I would add, too, with the Suns, for instance, Kevin Durant, one of the most talented offensive players in the history of the league, not really a dog in that way.
No,
like he's a little, he gets in his feelings and fights with people on Twitter. And
he's not a dog, yes.
And Devin Booker is just kind of a whiny, curls
and
up in
Beal
the
was in
fetal
Washington,
positions.
which was sort of weird because I mean
He has no winning DNA. Yeah.
exactly. Like he wakes up and just expects to lose a basketball game.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a good player, but yeah, his career is like Washington. Ugh.
Yeah. All right, Dex, what's your favorite current Wolves thing?
One more thing on DDV here to share, because Judd brought up, plus 26 last night, which was huge. But in the 3 games he's been back, plus 15, plus 14, plus 26. So, like, the dude has been a crazy energizer and just driver of offense for the Wolves. I think they lean keeping him on the bench and being this spark plug, but this is also, like, good problems to figure out if you're Chris Finch. But what he's been able to bring just energy-wise and spacing, and there's a lot of kind of cool, nuanced things there with how he approaches his spacing from where he shoots and whatnot. Like, he's, in terms of some guys, like, like when you go to a game in person, sometimes you can kind of just overlook and forget about what they can do. When you watch him in person, I think it's a special type of player, and it's really fun to see. My favorite the Wolves thing, though, because I don't think we talked about it. I know you and Kyle did something on it on Thursday, but just I think Jalen Clark earning the contract. He obviously was able to, he deserved it. And now that Randall and Donte is back, and we'll see how Rudy fits into the fold and does not stay in the starting role. Like, he only got, 9 or 10 minutes last night against Phoenix, but I still love that he's going to be a part of this rotation going forward. Is it going to be the 28 minutes that he played against OKC on the 24th? Maybe not. But there's still 15 to 20 effective minutes for Jalen Clark, who has clearly stepped up and earned that contract. I think that's my favorite thing to watch.
Yep. I think there's going to be nights where, like, Jalen Clark, Terrence Shannon Jr., Rob Dillingham, when everyone's healthy, aren't going to play like 25, 30 minutes. But can you find, depending on the night, all right, this is a 15 minutes of Terrence Shannon Jr. night. This is a 13 minutes of Jalen Clark's defense night, and kind of just find a middle ground between them playing as much as they were when everyone was hurt versus not playing at all.
Clark's skill set makes me think that he could play an absolutely crucial role in certain playoff series.
100%.
Like that guy, because he'll shut you down, and he doesn't care. Like, he is not, you never watch that guy go against top players and think, oh, okay, he's met his match, like he's backing down. He doesn't care. I could see him being a really, really key intangible guy against certain teams in the playoffs.
Even for a few minutes here and there, he's a guy that he can kind of shield Anthony Edwards. Like, Anthony Edwards, if needed, can go and pick up whatever defensive matchup he needs to. But you also have Jade McDaniels, who can do some of that, Nikhil. But in instances where it's like, all right, maybe Jaden's in foul trouble or taking a breather or whatever, and you want someone to take, in a playoff game, 6 minutes and go hound, pick your player that they could be. Go hound Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for half a quarter. And meanwhile, let another player either rest on the bench or take a less difficult defensive assignment. Totally. Before we get to our least favorite Wolves things here, a shout out to our friends at Kieran's right across the street from Target Center, Dex.
Yeah, great game day specials at Kieran's. Great food, great taps, a lot of awesome things at Kieran's. It's just steps away. It's your pregame and, hell, even postgame destination for every Timberwolves game. Just steps away from Target Center. Go stop into Kieran's. Tell them that Flagrant Howls sent you. Super excited to have Kieran's on board here. And when Twin season starts, you can do the similar things as well, which is obviously very close to Target Field. So go check out Kieran's, just steps away from the Target Center and Target Field.
Also, Element Hotel is a great spot, just steps away from Target Center to spend a weekend. Maybe there's you got friends, family coming in from out of town. Spend a night if you want to make a night of it downtown Minneapolis. Element Hotel, a Marriott Bonvoy hotel, is a great spot. It's super walkable to some of downtown Minneapolis's finest and most popular bars and restaurants, and you get great city views. Perfect rooms if you're flying solo or bringing the whole crew along. Also pet friendly too as well. So if you'd like a 15% room rate discount, go to scorenorth.com/element. That's scorenorth.com/element. Look at that room. There's literally a view of Target Field right outside your room. Pretty awesome. scorenorth.com/element. All right, least favorite current Wolves thing, Judd.
Unfortunately, it's my guy, Naz Reid. Ever since the bobblehead, ever since it came out, the Naz Reid, it's right here, bobblehead, it's been struggling from the field. He's been struggling from the field. So in the first 56 games of the season from the field, 48.6% shooting percentage, 40.6 from three. The last 5 games, though, 27 of 89 from the field, which is only 30%. 12 of 45, 26.7% from three-point range. That includes a 2 for 8 game against OKC in that comeback win the Wolves had. 0 for 5 from 3 against the Lakers last night, 1 for 8. So I'm confident that it's just a little slump. I'm confident that Nas is going to be fine. Nas agrees with that. Look at that. He's going to say, yes, I'll be fine. But unfortunately, Nas reads shooting slump a little bit of a buzzkill. And it's certainly, that the win against the Suns is great. And yes, they took care of business in Phoenix. But the Friday night game is still disappointing. You got to win that game. That game.
Yeah, they've got, I think, 9 losses now against teams. It's like 8 or 9 losses against teams that are below 500, and like everyone's going to have some. And there's actually, in the Western Conference, you'd be kind of shocked. Like there's a lot of teams above the Wolves that have as many losses against below 500 teams. The Wolves have played fewer games because they've played a harder schedule against the worst teams. So we'll see going forward. Naz Reid, yeah, he still has these little clunkers baked. He had one like 2 or 3 games. It was at the Lakers game where
1 for 10.
Yeah, it's
from the field, 0 for 5 from 3.
He's definitely a guy that you still give a boatload of money to. But this has been kind of a trial run of, all right, is he a 25 minutes guy or is he a 35 minutes guy? And there's a lot of signs that show you that he is a 35 minutes guy, especially if there's some depth loaded in and baked into the equation. But you got to get rid of the 3 for 15s. You know?
Exactly.
Like you got to find a way on a night like that. But they still, he was still a positive influence on the court.
Plus 26.
So
that's
he was
the good news. So
100%. The fact that him and Nickeil Alexander-Walker combined to go, I believe, 6 for 21, or no, 3 for 21 from the field, and they can still blow out the Suns is a pretty good sign.
I think when Nas has a rough patch, he gets in his head a little bit too much, and there has to be a switch there, right? Like, I did like the fact that he continued to shoot, because you're not going to break out of the slump unless you do continue to shoot. But I also think that there's times where when it's not going well, that becomes his like focus, and you probably can't do that. You probably have to just put that aside and go back to making shots, as opposed to your point, 3 for 15, 1 for 8 on threes. That's not going to work.
My least favorite Wolves thing is the amount of Julius Randle slander. And we've been guilty at times on this show too, but I do feel like it's gone too far, and it's been made to seem that he is like this anchoring effect on this team, or like that he's just this sluggish player that is preventing this team from winning more games. The Wolves were 5-8 without Julius Randle. They are 28-21 when he plays. Mm-hmm. So that right there tells you, with the current makeup of this team, they're better when he's playing. Now, there's still some things he does that'll drive you nuts from time to time, but he is generally a really good, talented player. He seems fully bought into what the Wolves are doing. Does that mean that I want him back on a 3-year contract for $100 million? No. But if, I'll put it this way, if this team is going to make a surprise-ish run in the Western Conference playoffs and win a series or two, he is going to have to be a positive force, and he was last night. And I forget about even like some of the box score stuff, because like you look at the box score and like he had a good game. He knocked down a couple threes, 20 points, grabbed some rebounds. It was the hustle plays in the fourth quarter when they're trying to put that thing away, and he's diving out of bounds and throwing it back in play, and then backdoor cutting for a dunk, and then pumping up with teammates after Jaden McDaniels. Like, to see him energized and bought in like that, he kind of goes from a guy that you felt like around the trade deadline, boy, you can still trade him leading up to the draft. There's still, you could sign and trade. There's things you could do to move him. But they are a more winning team when he's been in the lineup than out of the lineup.
There are certain things that we saw last night that there is no reason why they can't continue. Ant and his approach, Julius, Donte, like there was a lot of things I'd say starting probably about halfway through the second quarter, a bunch of things that you can point to and say, replicate that. Hustle, not going after officials if you're Ant. And yeah, Julius, to me, it's funny because his body language is often a big tell. And like last night, I thought it was outstanding. Like he looked like he was genuinely glad to be back. I think the question is this: how do you harness that continually? Because if you do, I think you're in a pretty good space.
Yeah. Amen. All right, Dex, what's your least favorite Wolves thing?
Yeah, look, I know it worked out for them last night, but just these first quarter clunking starts that they just find themselves in all season long. So obviously last night they're down 15-5 to Phoenix against Utah. Utah gets off to an 8-0 start to start the game. Against the Lakers, they're down by 10 points 3 minutes into the game. Now, they've been slow starting teams. This has kind of been part of their DNA, but can you just at least hang? Can you at least just not completely have to stumble out and have to crawl out of a 10-point deficit early? Just getting off to better starts, man. Especially, look, I know they have an easy schedule here moving forward. That's great. But in a playoff game, you're going to continually start down 15 points 3 minutes into a game. That's not going to be a very good recipe for success for a playoff run. So just, I think, getting off to much better and more just efficient starts.
Yep. That is definitely a thing for this team. This team has also lost the most games when leading in the fourth quarter of any team in the league. They've lost like 15 games or something when leading in the fourth quarter. So there's your state of the Wolves, boys. Go win some games. You got this Joel Embiid-less Sixers team at home tomorrow night.
They've quit.
Dude, Embiid's career might be over.
Yeah. And that team they've quit.
Yeah. And then Charlotte on the second end of a back-to-back. So go stack some wins here and make a run back up to the six. Even like the Rockets are catchable in that 5 seed too.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Tumbled down.
Exactly right.
Yep. So, all right. He's the sports dad, Judd. He's producer Dex. I am Phil, and this is Flagrant Howls, a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.